Welcome back to Highly Successful Couples. My name's Nick Solacek, and today I'm joined by two people who have made a profound difference for me and thousands of couples around the world. That's actually an understatement. Millions and millions of couples. Today we have Helen LaKelly Hunt and Harville Hendrix, New York Times bestselling authors, founders of the IMAGO Theory, and there's a number of accomplishments that fall under their names, and they bring a lot of wisdom and insight to today's conversation before they've even said a word. So welcome, Harville and Helen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us, Nick.
Yeah, it's an honor. I had the privilege of picking up your new book, which I have here, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything. Yeah. And, there's a couple things that really stood out to this book. Before we talk about that, I just want to say, one thing that stands out to me is that the two of you have been professionally working with organizations, with couples for decades. And many people, there's an idea in culture of Freedom 55, maybe that once I'm, over 50 or 60, I'll put my feet up on the beach and never have to lift a finger and work again. Mm-hmm. And the two of you are doing monthly workshops. I imagine there's some travel involved with that. And you're just published a new book last year. Can you speak to this a little bit? You guys are so engaged. You haven't, put your pen down or put your feet up permanently. What keeps you guys going?
Okay. I'm going to answer, Harville. Okay. So my husband researches innovative things. And one of them was, there's a different way to talk rather than monologue and dialogue. Well, the other innovative thing he did about 3 years ago was, he said, Helen, I have studied tipping point theory, and all we need to do is get 2.4 people using dialogue, and the rest of global humanity collapses and becomes dialogical. So that's our job.
And so this is a big mission. You're talking about 2.4 billion people.
Yes. At least.
We can reach them. That's the tipping point to impact the entire planet.
Yeah. So I'd like to respond to that by thanking you for the question, because it's a question I have now stopped asking myself, like, how come I'm getting up this morning and doing this again? And again, and I'm 89, so I've been doing it now for over 50 years. So what is it? And I actually have thought deeply about it. And many people have a difference. They have a split. It's actually not a split. It's they have a personal life and they have a professional life. And so I don't think I have a personal and professional life. I just think I have a life, and that I do. And I would put it under, and I think this would be right, I would put it under the fact that early in my life, I experienced nothing dramatic, but what I would call a call. And that was when I was 15 and I was going to the ministry and be a preacher and, bring everybody into some spiritual awareness. And I moved through theology, psychology, philosophy in over all these years. But it's all been aimed at changing the world. And the messages have changed, but the mission has not changed. And I think over time, I've merged my personal life with my professional life. So what we do is personal things, but we don't just take off. And I don't think we've had a sustained vacation now for 10 years.
Right.
And it's like what we do daily. Well, not every day. It's not all that exciting, but the project we're engaged in to bring, and it's very focused, to bring dialogue to the world. And the tipping point means 25% of the world's population is what you have to do in order to make an impact on civilization itself. It's just what we do. And then we watch the videos at night, or we'll take off, but we don't. And I don't even have I used to just dream, when could I go on a motorhome trip. I love motorhome tripping. And I don't know anything more interesting than what we're doing, including going on a motorhome trip. That is so, like talking with you is a part of this mission that we say again, and you will then be our distributor that we get out to. I don't know how many people listen to your podcast. I hope it's hundreds of thousands or millions, is a part of our work. So when we get an invitation from you, then that's another part of our journey, which is, okay, we get to impact a new audience perhaps today, and we're going to talk about the same thing, and that is how do people connect. We start with marriage, but we move to how does anybody connect in corporations, congregations, educational systems, and so forth. So I think that's sort of a longer and maybe unnecessarily long answer, but that it's somehow not a job. I don't feel like I've ever had a job. Well, I did have one job. I was a university professor for 9 years and got fired and decided that I didn't like being a university professor anyway. So then I moved into working with couples, and that led to IMAGO, and IMAGO led to the concept of a social mission. And so anyway, that's sort of my long answer to your question.
And if I could add, so my father, I was born the daughter of H.L. Hunt, who, like Harville, Harville was raised in Statesboro, Georgia. It was there was a lot of cotton. It was a farming place.
Yeah.
And my father was married in Illinois, and he was being homeschooled, and he wanted to discover what the world was like, and he left home before getting a high school education, hopped on a train, and the train took him different places, and it took him eventually to South Texas, where he discovered a sandy. Anyway, he discovered an oil well, and they drilled down, and it became the biggest oil well in the world. So my father has an oil company, and it's in illegal stock. Half of the profits goes to the federal government for welfare or for the military, and half goes to family members. And I need to fund something that will improve society. And wow, was I wowed when I heard Harville give his first lecture on dialogue. So I proposed to him, which eventually resulted in, we both were in Dallas. We went to New York, got his lectures transcribed. A book was published, Getting the Love You Want, and Oprah Winfrey called and said, I've got to interview him.
Yeah, and that's what put it all out into the world. As you were talking, I was thinking another way that we have both become, it's no longer what we do and who we are. We are what we do, and we do what we are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the merger that has happened over time. So there's no, well, I got to go and do my thing. Well, my thing is changing the world, and I'm tired today, so I'm going to go to the gym, or we're going to take a day off or a week off or something like that, just to rest. But I thank you for the question.
Yes,
we don't often get
us,
that question.
The people listening, what we need to be talking about, so far, I apologize. I think we're both apologizing. Dialogue is life-changing. It is relationship-changing. It is life-changing.
Yeah.
And that's what you asked us to come and talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. And in this new book, speaking about dialogue, my audience knows a little bit about that, because I'm basically every episode talking about IMAGO concepts that can positively impact couples, and how we can work together and hold hands on the roller coaster of life and honor each other's differences.
The roller coaster of life. Great. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. And, in your book, one thing that really stood out to me in this new book, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, is that nature is dyadic. And the way that might apply to relationships is, if we're single, we might look for someone who's like us. Or if we're in a relationship, we want our partner to be like us.
Yeah.
And we're looking for that sameness, but reject difference. So maybe you could speak to this.
Yes.
Why do we reject difference?
And this is when we do our Getting Love You Want workshops. I do this one little bit near the beginning. Hey, everybody, guess what? Human beings are part of nature, and guess what? Nature is dyadic: hot, cold, dark, light, sweet, sour, wet, dry. It's just filled with difference. So don't expect your partner to be like you. And then we talk about how the difference between monologue and dialogue helps people listen to each other and connect beyond their difference.
Yeah, and the question often is, how do we get rid of difference? And the thing we want to say is what Helen just said: is difference can't be gotten rid of. So difference is the nature of nature. So what we have to do is come to understand that difference, every human being is unique and not the same as any other human being. And that ultimately what couples need to do is to accept the fact that they are different, and that that as some part of their unconscious mind pulled them together because one had difference A, the other one had difference B. Like, I think as you put in your notes to us, sometimes the lonely or isolated person marries the anxious person who's very active, and the isolated person is very withdrawn or not active. That's not a mistake, that's the way nature set it up to deal with an issue.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it can depend on how you were parented. Harville's, the people who raised Harville would, we work on the farm, you don't have time to read, you can't have time, do the dishes, get in the fields, milk the cows, And he needed to find someone as a partner who would give him private time to study and to read. And I lived in a house that was everyone was so busy. No one ever. I had people take me to school. My parents didn't have time, pick me up, and even my mother. She was doing charity work around Dallas. Yeah. She didn't have time to say, Helen, how was your day at school? Do you have any friends? Like, no one asked me any questions. So I needed someone to notice me.
So she married.
I was the middle child.
So she, needing somebody to notice her, she marries a person who's withdrawn and isolated, and who doesn't naturally notice, unless you bump into me and then I notice you. But other than that, so that she's that person with a lot of energy that's expressive, and I have a lot of energy, but it's recessive. So that's a polarity. And that
every night you both before dinner and then before going to bed, you give me appreciations of things I've done that day.
So we have to structure ways to meet each other's needs. And Helen honors my need for privacy. I honor her need for connecting,
to be seen,
to be seen,
noticed,
yes, which
appreciated.
Is what everybody wants, is to be seen, heard, and valued. So you have to figure out what the quotient is.
What does your partner need from you to feel good?
So I think the other thing I want to say about the problem of difference is that it has to do with more than our psychology. It has to do with the way our brain, all brains, process the outside world. And that we didn't know this for thousands of years. Human beings did not know that everybody sees the world differently. So for thousands of years, social organizations have been vertical. And so the people up here at the top, the leaders, the father, the parents, or the boss, or the king, or the prince, or whoever, sent messages down and wanted you down here to be and see the world the way the person at the top sees it. And and nobody knew, even philosophers in the history of philosophy did not know that that's not possible, because there was an assumption that if I see orange and you look at orange, you'll see orange. There was no thought that if you look at the orange, it's a different color of orange from what I see, and it's hard to even say that. But the brain cannot make a copy. The brain always can do an approximation, but not a copy. But there's always a difference, and that. So I got interested in that and pushed the research on it down to the subatomic particle world. And quantum physicists talking about subatomic particles can't find a particle at the subatomic level that's identical to another particle. It's always different. You split a particle, you get 3, they're all different. You split one of those, you get 3 more, they're all different. You keep going down, there's no sameness. So you have to come to the conclusion that difference is the primary feature of nature. And then you can reorient your mind about what that is and say, okay, so we're different. If I listen to Helen and to ask her to tell me about her world and don't judge it and devalue it and tell her that she's dumb and stupid for having that, but if I say, oh, so that's how it looks to you.
To me.
And that's what's valuable to you. And then I grow my own brain by taking in Helen's world and accepting it for what it is for her.
Yeah, he doesn't have to agree.
Right. I was going to say, I don't have to agree with it, but I have to see that she sees it that way and that what she sees is the truth.
For her.
For her. And that I can't see it, but I can mirror it back. I can and do all that. So what we operationally what we do with couples and what so excited to say to them is your partner's difference is a resource for you to grow beyond yourself. Mm-hmm. Because once you let your partner's world in and see what they value and what they feel and what they love and what they hate, you have 2 worlds in your head now. And so you're bigger. But if you keep her out and don't, you're left only with yourself and only with your world. And there's no way to grow without, and we say now, without listening, because listening is the avenue by which you receive stuff that's not already in your head. And if you listen, then I listen to you, and I listen to you, and I listen to you. I grow my brain as I allow difference to be accepted and integrated into my world. And so I get richer as a person by accepting difference rather than by rejecting it. But the natural inclination is to reject it because that's how the brain is set up. It's all centered around me, and we have to grow into that next stage. Mm-hmm. I think that's the human challenge.
Nick, you sent us a list of questions or issues that might be discussed. So without asking me, can I follow up with what Harville said? So one time Harville and I were really, really parallel, and we tell our the people in our workshops 2 times we almost divorced. And at the end, we have another one. But this was, we were really parallel. And I suggested Harville, and this, we're both a lot real old. I mean, I'm 76, but I feel young because I get to talk about dialogue. But I went to to the drugstore, and there was a calendar you could purchase. I guess they're still for sale, but I just use my iPhone. I don't need a calendar. But I said, Harville, let's get a calendar that is for us to use every night. Now, every day we do our best, right? Okay. But sometimes we're upset with one another by the end of the day. And I said, let's take the calendar, and on the even days, 1, 3, on the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, every even day, those are the odd days because there are more. I said, I will take responsibility by 6 or 7 o'clock, they were connected, no matter what we had, what problem we had before going to bed. We will be connected. And on the even days of the month, because he had fewer, the second, fourth, 6th, 8th, 10th, it was his responsibility. And so it's a way that both partners are responsible for the relationship.
Yeah. In terms of calendars, you also have used the calendar for positivity and eliminating negativity.
Yeah.
Well, and then that became a calendar that we distribute at the workshop.
Yeah, that's the zero negativity process, because it became clear to us. We haven't talked yet about our personal struggle that led almost to a divorce, but that what saved us, or how we saved ourselves, or I don't know how you put that, was to discover that negativity was killing us. And my trying to get her to change, and her resisting me trying to get her to change and wanting me to change. And that it was, both of us are powerful intellects, and we have really strong points of view, and we know we're right. And so that was sort of our thing. But to move into understanding that negativity is in, when I say to Helen, that doesn't make any sense. That's negating her. And I'm thinking, of course, I'm trying to help her get out of her nonsense into sense. That if I criticize her, she'll be better and she'll learn something from my criticisms. But what is the truth about that is every time I put down what she's saying, I'm negating her. So that's a negative energy. So her defenses are going to be triggered. She can't even regulate that. Her defenses are going to go into operation because I'm now negating her. So her defenses say, I'm in danger with Harville. It doesn't go through her mind. She doesn't say, I'm in danger with Harville, but her defenses read the energy that's coming. So if I do that, so what we discovered was that negativity was killing us. And that's when we went to the calendar to identify how many times a day we were negative. And for 3 months, we didn't have a single check mark for positivity. 3 full months. And that I still remember that was chilling. That now we're deliberately.
We were teaching other people to dialogue all over the world.
And we were not doing it. But the X was negativity on the calendar and the check was positivity. And for the first 3 months, we started that. We didn't have any checks. Mm-hmm. And then finally a check or two came in. And we were in the divorce procedure at that time, had our papers, but decided not to go ahead because it looked like we got 2 check marks. So let's keep going. And about 3 months later, we were up to about a third to half. And we saw, this is working. Something different is happening now. We're removing negativity. And at that time, we didn't spend a whole lot of time on the positive. It was just get the negative out. And that began to change it so dramatically that we decided not to divorce. In fact, we decided that we would have a recommitment ceremony in a church, at Riverside Church in New York City, and really celebrate it because it seemed like a huge achievement for us to overcome that polarization that we were in.
And one thing we discovered is at the drugstore also, another time I found, I was able, there's a plastic eyeglasses that you could buy and a rubber nose and a mustache. And they were called Groucho Marx glasses. Well, I brought home 2. And for every night, for a while, we wore the Groucho Marx glasses and got a joke book. Mm-hmm. And that began to relax us. And then he had 2 kids when I was married. And I had 2 kids when I was married. When we married.
And then we got 2.
So we had 4 kids, and then we had 2 more. And our kids were arguing a lot. And so we brought these joke books home for the kids to read before going to dinner.
Right.
So structure time differently.
Yeah.
Because during school, during business, as an adult, you can't afford to be silly or to laugh. Mm-hmm. Get the job done, God damn it.
Yeah.
And or you'll be fired. And
so as I look back on that.
But laughter, you just forget all your problems when you start laughing.
And we were not spontaneously laughing or playing and having fun. I look back on that as how pathetic we were, that we had to get Groucho Marx things and joke books.
And Oprah says we're relationship experts.
Relationship. And fortunately, we don't have to do that now. We find humor everywhere. But when I look back, I'm amazed that I'm still amazed that we made it. And how much energy it took to finally get over and see each other.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you're amazed we
I'm
made
amazed.
it. I was going to hang in there no matter what. The only other person that has ever taught people dialogue is Socratic dialogue, 330 BC. And the Greek authorities said, Socrates, you're disrupting the youth. Stop it. Just let the young people be. Mm-hmm. Socrates kept teaching young people Socratic dialogue.
Yeah.
Greek authorities didn't like it. They said, if you don't stop it, we're going to arrest you, put you in jail. He kept doing it. He was arrested, put in jail. Socrates, last chance. Say you will not teach young people Socratic dialogue, and you'll be released. If not, tomorrow morning, we will put you to death. But that night, he drank poison. So this guy, I'm going to do everything I can. Socrates was wise. He was a wise person. And no one since 330 BC has ever created the sentence stems of dialogue that transforms every single couple's relationship. Mm-hmm. And once they learn to use it, except this guy.
So if I'm tracking you, you're saying that you're not really shocked that we're still together, that you got to the point where you made a decision, no way in hell were we not going to be together because we had something to offer the world and to offer
Absolutely.
ourselves. Am I tracking that?
I mean, if you wanted to divorce me, okay, but I'm not going to. I'm not. I would love to stay planted, and I want to be here for you forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, the world needs it. And it's your idea, 2.4 billion. So that's our life. And all of you all listening to this, you all will now be learning about dialogue from everything that Nick is teaching you.
Okay.
One of the things that I notice here when you guys are speaking that you tend to do really well is, and this is really in your teaching, is you flex your containment muscles, which is this thing, I have something that I want to say. And I see some couples, when they have something that they want to say, they just talk over each other.
Yeah.
And one thing, Helen, I see you doing is you gently raise your hand so that Harville knows you want something to say and that he can see that, and you guys can take turns in exchange. And this is part of the wisdom of dialogue as well, which is one person talks and one person listens.
Yeah.
And I just want to acknowledge that. It's really beautiful to see. And for the couples that are watching the video, maybe there's something there too for them to pick up on, that, I actually can hold and contain my energy for a moment, allow my partner to finish. And when we both do that, maybe we both hear more about each other's world.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and the other person feels respected when they can finish what they have to say. Instead of, look, I'm in a hurry and I've got to say that, they feel like you're making time for them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Take as long as they want.
Or that you're wrong, so I have to correct you.
Yeah.
So a lot of the interruptive thing is you hear difference and you have to negate difference by saying it's this way. So that's another part of it's kind of a violation of boundaries, but we don't know that. We do it so naturally. We don't know they're actually violating that person's boundaries by telling them that that's not right without asking permission to talk.
Yeah. This disturbance of difference, that you're different than me, you don't see things the way that I see it, you don't do things the way that I do it, that can be upsetting or triggering in some way.
Yeah.
That's got a little bit to do with our past.
Yeah.
There are real things happening in the present moment that could be hurtful, but often when there's a big trigger or there's a lot of energy there, there's something historical.
Yes.
And your work has helped people identify that there could be something in their childhood that's playing a role.
Yeah.
So my audience knows a lot about that there's wisdom in the past. We weren't there in our partner's childhood. We didn't grow up in their home. Right. We're missing a lot of key data. Mm-hmm. But some people that work with me and other IMAGO facilitators, they don't always remember childhood.
Yeah.
They don't always really remember what went on between the ages of 0 and 10 or 0 and 20.
Yeah.
Is there anything that a person could do or try to remember to get some context?
Well,
could I say one sentence?
You want to say one thing?
And then, we suggest that a person is either overmanaged by their parents. You need to do this. 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 And they don't get to be who they are. They don't have time to do what they want to do, or they were neglected and no one noticed them. That those are the two big things people talk about, a painful childhood.
And our adaptation to that, it leaves us memories in childhood. So how do people deal with, I don't have a memory of my childhood? And just to generalize that question comes up in every workshop that we do. And so in terms of doing a process of getting, because there's some processes that require you to remember a time in childhood when is kind of a sentence stem, and when. And people come up and say, I just can't do this because I don't have any memories of childhood. So it's really very easy to fix that, because my response is always, what's your biggest gripe with your partner?
Yeah, make it up.
That comes up. No, you don't make it up. What's your biggest gripe with your partner that comes up over and over again? That's the issue that did not get resolved with your caretakers in childhood. So your unconscious mind has brought it to your adult relationship. Mm-hmm. And the reason it brought it to the adult relationship with this partner is because your partner has similarities to the caretaker in childhood with whom the issue was created. Mm-hmm. And since the brain didn't finish that in childhood, the relationship, the caretakers didn't know it, didn't finish it. Now, here's the thing that goes really deep, is that sometimes it's like, well, so that came from childhood and we can wipe it off. Okay, now we got the idea. But the fundamental thing is the brain, our brains, all our brains, every brain, ever since there's been a brain, has one agenda: to stay alive. And the child in infancy, when it doesn't get a need met, activates that survival directive in the child's brain. And if that need, so the child cries and cries and cries. And then the second thing the child does, if they cry and don't get heard, they will then stop crying. And it's what's so interesting is that the caretaker who doesn't respond to the cry will respond when the crying stops, because now they're curious, why did the baby stop crying? Did something happen? So for the baby, not crying got attention. So the baby now has a message. My caretaker is not available, not meeting my needs. If I cry and stop, then I can get attention. And for some other babies, if I cry, the caretaker comes. So whatever happens in childhood that works, i.e. to get the attention of the caretaker, the parent or whoever is taking care of the kid to get that attention, will be programmed in the unconscious mind and will be used in adulthood with your partner, because your partner is similar to that caretaker who did not meet the need in childhood. So however you got that partner's attention in childhood, you'll do it in adulthood. You'll do it by saying, I don't have any needs, or you'll do it by being overly needy, depending on what gets the response that gives you some sense that the partner is paying attention in the way that you got the caretaker in childhood to pay attention by using. And now in adulthood, however, crying is turned into complaining and fussing, or not crying is turned into withdrawal and not being present and isolating oneself. Neither one of those work in adulthood to get the need met. So that's when couples then get into the impasse, is they don't now know what to do, because what worked in childhood to get the caretaker's attention is not working in adulthood. So couples have to understand that that's what's going on, so that when there is some complaining going on, what do? Well, instead of complaining back, well, I didn't do it, you did it, and you did it 2 days ago. How come I can't do it? And you're always doing it, and you're always accusing me of doing it. None of that ever works. Our brain thinks it works. If we can point out how it's not working, that it will make it work. But the brain has no instructions in the complaint except what is needed. So we say embedded in a complaint is a wish. And the wish is always to be seen, heard, and valued in some particular way. So that when Helen is talking and she's upset with me, my best response to her is, so Helen, let me see if I'm getting that. I didn't do X, Y, I didn't show up, and I didn't call, and I didn't write the email, or I didn't pick up the stuff from the grocery store. Am I getting that? And she'll say, well, yeah. So, well, and then I go to curiosity. Well, is there more about that? So I want to invite her to go ahead and download all the stuff that's going on. Now, I'm having to self-regulate at this point, but the way I'm doing that and moving from my lower brain to my prefrontal cortex is by mirroring her, because I can't mirror from the lower brain. I can only mirror using the
neocortex.
The neocortex, because there's a little feeling up there, but not much, and I can regulate feeling. So when I say, let me see if I got it, and is there more? Then I can say, okay, now, so what do you need from me now? We can move into what would repair this. And now we are gone through a crisis of ruptured connection and not reacting to her negatively by having my own ruptured connection. We are now reconnected in a matter of minutes. But if I react to her, we have 2 or 3 days. That's going to be awful. So it's a skill, and it requires practice. But if couples could just get it, when your partner's upset, take it seriously and mirror them back. Just say back to them, so if I'm getting it, you're upset that I didn't close the garage door. You're upset that I didn't pick up the groceries, or that I didn't kiss you when I came home from work. Am I getting that? So is there more about that? And that itself moves the partner from their lower brain to their prefrontal cortex, because they have to respond to my curiosity. Is there more about that? And when they say more, they then regulate. So we call that co-regulation. But one person has to start out. It's like in tennis, somebody has to serve the ball. And so in a relationship, either one can do it, but the upset person, if I'm not the one upset, but Helen's upset with me, if I will mirror her and then show curiosity, I will regulate her, and I am self-regulated by the regulation. So we call it co-regulation. And it's a very lovely skill, but it does require some training and practice.
So it can be really challenging to move from the reactive brain, the lower brain, into the upper brain or creative brain.
Yeah.
And, this is a beautiful practice. I've really experienced it as totally profound, changed my perspective on relationship, and has allowed me and my partner to move through many power struggle moments. Are there techniques or strategies here for couples that are just getting started? It's like, how can we get out of our reactive brain? Because if I'm really in that energy, I'm in that place, it's so hard. It feels like a 500-pound lift to say, okay, well, let me see if I've got that, because I want to stay alive. I want to protect my identity.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And to remember also, I'm glad you said that all that's going on in that fight is, am I going to live or die? The brain is in the survival mode. Mm-hmm. So I think the what I would say is how to get ready for this.
I have a quick
and you have a comment. Is that it's better not to try to deal with a 10-degree intensity conflict without any training. So the best thing couples can do is to start practicing the dialogue process. And in our workshops, we encourage them for it to become your new way of talking all the time. But couples are not going to do that because it's so radical that they only use it if there's an upset. So we say, well, when you're upset, that's when you need the skill, and you don't have it yet. So set aside some time, either daily or weekly, as often as you can, to have a dialogue about something over which you have a difference. Mm-hmm. And so that you'll learn, your brain can say, let me see if I got that. You have to learn to do, because we don't do that naturally. Hardly anybody on the planet does that with anybody else. Let me see if I'm getting that. And did I get it? Checking out the accuracy. And is there more about that? That is a radically new insertion, because it's listening, and listening is mirroring. Listening is not just hearing and reacting. Listening is hearing and mirroring back. Now you're into listening. So you practice that. When you're not upset, you're training your brain to use those, to remember, let me see if I got it, and to also use it around something that's a problem anyway in the relationship. So now if somebody trips and falls, and it's time to mirror. So you're not now, it's not the first time you picked up the racket to hit the ball. You've been swinging that racket for several weeks or months, and then you can say, and you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to not react negatively. Just have to say, well, can I say something, or can I mirror you back, or I can see you're really upset. I'd like to do something for that, rather than, why are you upset? And I'm blah, 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 and joining. Every time you join the upset, you magnify it. But another way to put it that's at a high level is there's an energy field here. And if Helen's upset, she's disturbing the energy field, and I'm going to feel that disturbance. But if I add to it, then the field enlarges the disturbance in it. But if I bring in positive energy to a disturbed energy field, it regulates it. And it's easy to describe, but as you pointed out, it's really hard to do. So you train yourself ahead of time so that when the time comes that you will need it, and it will come, and you will need it, you now know the sentence stem. Let me see if I got that. You are upset because blah, 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 blah. Am I getting that? Mm-hmm. And after a while, it'll be automatic. But it's just like tennis. It's not automatic until you practice enough that you train this muscle to hold the racket in a counterintuitive way. And then you can hit the ball. But if you don't train that muscle, you'll never hit the ball over the net. Mm-hmm. You wanted to add something.
And try to have in your home things that remind your partner of how both of you have committed to love each other. Oh. And one of our young people, when he grew up, became a theologian, and he teaches at the University of Dallas at Irving. And he contacted me one day and said, Mom, the way to live life, 3 words, faith, hope, love. Well, as Harville knows, I have this baseball cap in different colors. And sorry, it doesn't fit very well with.
Yeah.
But it's a reminder of how this is how I'm trying to live life. And I have it in different colors depending on what I'm wearing. But put things on your refrigerator door or that are loving memories of you when you were young, when you got married. But just keep those memories of vacations together, because a life is stressful, very, very stressful. But your home can be a place of peace, but basically faith, hope, love.
Yeah, and it's hard to see that on the camera, but that's faith, hope, and love is on the cap. So she wears that.
A lot.
And to interested people, she'll give you one.
Oh, my finance team has all of them like it. So the head of my finance team and a lot of people.
Yeah.
Harville, as you were sharing there, you were talking about the energy field and how things can get negative really quickly, and we can amplify each other's negative energy with our reactions and responses to each other.
Yeah.
And that if we meet our partner who might be feeling something negative, we meet them with positivity, that we can transform that moment.
Yeah.
And what I want to drill down on just for a moment is that message of positivity, or that energy of positivity, isn't necessarily, well, honey, look on the bright side, or, why don't you be more positive? That, we have to be careful with obviously being dismissive or invalidating of our partner's experience. Yeah. And that positivity that you're speaking to is really about turning off the TV channel of your own life, being curious about your partner, and maybe asking yourself the question, how could I support them? Or what do they need right now?
Right. Yes. If you say what you just said, hey, why don't you be more positive and look on the bright side and all that, that's an absolute negation. Because the other side of that is you look on the bad side and you're not positive. Mm-hmm. So that's a negation. So we have to be careful about all that. And also it's kind of a regulatory attempt anyway. So what is really important in terms of being positive is to say, Helen, once we've regulated, is to say, I really appreciate your pointing this out to me, how I did not do that, because I was not aware that I did not do that. And we also have a little phrase that we make, thank you for another opportunity for me to grow. Mm-hmm. Because every time she points out how I'm ignoring her or not reading her, that tells me I need to increase my sensitivity so that I can pick up on her energy and that it not have to become a problem. So and then the other thing we do that I really like, and you do this, is something that you do because you're more expressive than me, is Helen puts she puts things on the wall or on the mirror in the bathroom, and like you are wonderful, so that she sends positive messages to who I am by just putting it on the wall, or it's come in, and I think I initiate.
Oh, and
more
pictures. Pictures of a birthday party and things like that.
Yeah.
Just remind him of
of
wonderful times.
And sometimes you leave on the counter in the kitchen a list of things that you liked that I did yesterday. And and I like to walk into the room and say, "Hey, where's my queen? There she is," and walk up and hug her. So and let me just put this now in the framework of a theory. Helen's expectations of me are going to depend upon the memories in her mind of how I've interacted with her in the past. And she can't change her brain's predictive qualities. One of the new things that's come out in brain research is our brains are predictive. They're not perceptive. They are predicting what's going to happen. They don't just passively wait until something comes in front of you and just make a snapshot out of it. They anticipate what's going to come. So when I read that, now I don't know how many years old it is, when I read that, I thought, that is so empowering. And I'm so glad to know that, first of all, those of us who think we really understand how the brain works for so long was perception is not the primary activity of the brain. Prediction is the primary activity of the brain. So when you get that clear, then I know that if I was negative, did a put down, and we had a problem and didn't get it repaired, her brain, independent of her will, is going to anticipate that when she sees me again in a few minutes or a few hours, we're going to have another negative interaction. So the brain's going to go on the defensive. Now, given that I created her memories, I created her memories of me. She didn't create the memory. Now, her brain is such that it records whatever happens in front of her, and it goes into the hippocampus as a part of her memory system of Harville. Now, so Harville is a jerk, and he's going to be a jerk next time I see him. But if I do a lot of positive inputs to Helen, her brain is slowly going to say, well, maybe he's not a jerk after all. He's maybe changed, and I got all that positive stuff. And so I go away to work, and her brain is going to anticipate when I come back and come in that I'm going to come in and embrace her and give her what we call a flooding. You're an amazing woman. I can't believe I'm married to somebody as amazing as you. So sometimes it's just an exercise, but it's authentic. And then sometimes it's, wow, what you just did today when you talk to that person and so forth. Her brain then begins to anticipate that I'm going to be positive. So now think about, let me just finish this sentence. Just think about how powerful this is. I create her memories of me. I can now decide how she will remember me by the memories I create for her of me. That gives me enormous power to live in a relationship with someone in which we are connecting and enjoying each other because I'm in charge of what she anticipates from me. So once I got that clear, it was like, oh my God, I've always thought I'd always had to have a reactive stance, kind of deal with it. No, I create her anticipation. So I can create a new anticipation in her mind about me. And then when I show up, she will anticipate that I'm going to be wonderful. And so that gives you such a power in your relationship to decide how you want your partner to remember you and then create those memories for your partner. Yes.
And guess what, Nick? We are over time, but I thought, okay, we said 50 minutes and we're over. I thought I want to say one thing before it ends, even though we're over time. And it's about the brain of all things. That everyone listening to this, we have a book on Kindle, and it's for people who have learned about dialogue, and it talks about the crocodile brain. This is the part of the brain that controls your vital functions. It keeps you alive, but it's all about protecting you, and monologue. And then there's a wise owl brain, the crocodile brain and the wise owl, which is what you talked about, going to the neocortex, left brain hemisphere, right brain hemisphere. Anyway, everyone listening to this, I won't explain the book, but couples will love purchasing it. It's on Kindle.
And knowing that the changes you make in the relationship change the brain. So if you want a new brain, change the interactions in the relationship.
The more you're in the wise owl brain, the stronger it becomes, and it releases different neurochemicals, dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, serotonin, as opposed to cortisol and adrenaline, crocodile brain, and you live longer, you're a happier person, and you have healthier relationships.
Yeah.
Helen, I recommend everyone goes to pick up How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, Getting the Love You Want, and all the other amazing books in your catalog. The book you're talking about on healthy brains or brain science, is there a specific title to that you said on Kindle?
The Wise Owl Brain.
Oh, The Wise Owl.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's on Amazon also.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. Well, thank you two for being here. I would just like to mention for you that you have an online training March 7th and 8th. You guys know that's happening, but our listeners might not.
Yeah.
And if they want to work with you online or in person, you guys have an in-person event in April as well.
Right.
And the best place, I think, for people to get that information is harvillandhelen.com.
Yeah.
So that's why
that is correct. And could I add something to that? In March, we're going to do something new that you don't know about. That we will have a new platform, a separate platform to launch a legacy documentary of our lives, which includes a copy of me and copy of Helen, the AI copy, a mirror of us. What do you call it?
The bot.
The bot. But people can go to this platform and ask us questions, and we're not there, but our bot will answer the questions, because this bot will know everything that we have written and said. And sometimes when I'm playing with it, even what I've thought, I didn't know I'd written that. It seemed like it says something. So that will be available for people. And we are also launching a summit on dialogue.
This is real important.
In April, and that'll all be on the Harville and Helen website as well. So if people want to join and see what's happening around the world. I think we're now in 65 countries, and we're doing this global summit on dialogue that involves the world. That'll happen also in April, but in March, the legacy the documentary will be out with the new bot that will answer people's questions without us having to be there.
Yes,
it's a part of our legacy planning, so that when we die and we are getting old and headed toward that, the group come up and said, we need to have you available forever to answer people's questions when you're gone. So this bot will do that.
And the last comment, because I was going to have our assistant send you something, Nick, a colleague of ours who has known us for a long time said Harville and Helen, it was a woman, Harville and Helen, every single IMAGO therapist, there are 2,500 IMAGO therapists in 56 countries, teach dialogue in therapy offices like Nick. And there's a training institute in Dallas where anyone can learn to be taught to teach dialogue. And she said, let's pull them together and have a global summit. So this is something that if any of you would like to be a part of, because it's about, we had a meeting a month ago and at a recording studio here, a very famous recording studio here in Dallas, and it had people from all over the world. Harville and I read a sheet of paper. Harville wrote most of the paper, but it's people. Over time, the world can change. Different things have never been done before, and someone shows up, the world is different. And Harville had made a list of, and the one I put on was Wilbur and Orville Wright created an airplane. Well, they said, oh, you can't, that'll never happen. That'll never happen. So Orville rhymes with Harville. And I said, you have to get the Orville and Wright, Wilbur and Orville Wright. The plane lifted off, and one day, like Harville said, the whole world can become dialogical. Yeah. And we'd like all of you who have been taught by Nick, consider joining this work.
And it'll be out on social media so people can sign up.
Beautiful. Well, I'll look forward to that. And just want to thank you both for doing all the work that you do and for being here. It's an honor to talk with you both. So thanks for taking the time.
Yes.
Well, I feel honored that you wanted to talk with us and delighted to be here and be a part of that. And thank you for helping get the word out that dialogue is the new way to talk and the new way to relate.